David caused quite a stir at the auction with his enormous bull. The sheer size of the animal left everyone in awe and disbelief. However, the auctioneer viewed things differently and grew suspicious of the farmer. His concerns were significant enough that he decided to contact the police. In hindsight, this turned out to be a prudent decision. Farmer David had no idea that the auctioneer would find out his big secret. When he arrived at the auction with his bull, he was very excited about the money he would make from selling it. However, things changed when the police showed up, and David realized they were there for him. He tried to run back to his truck and escape, but it was too late. He was arrested, and he knew it was all over for him. So how did this happen? And how did the auctioneer know what David was doing? Well, David had been a farmer for several years and owned a huge bull. Everyone who saw the animal was amazed by its size. David knew he could make a lot of money by selling the bull at the auction. But how did the bull get so big? That was David's secret, and he wasn't going to tell anyone. Other farmers often asked him, but David always stayed quiet. He only shared his secret with a few people who promised to keep it to themselves, not because it was a great method, but because it was a bad one. When David decided to sell the bull at the auction, the people who knew his secret tried to convince him not to go through with it. If he got caught, they would all be in trouble just for knowing. But David was greedy and focused on the idea of making a lot of money, so he was determined to go to the auction. On that day, everyone at the local auction house was incredibly surprised to see David's bull come in. The bull was different due to its size, so everyone was immediately interested in the animal. David had to provide the age and weight of the bull, but when people asked about his methods, he stayed silent. This only made everyone more curious. What was his big secret? No one at the auction house had ever seen anything like David's bull, and no one could believe the number on the scale when they weighed the animal. It was the heaviest bull they had ever had, and the auction house workers didn't really know what to do. Should they authorize the bull for sale or not? So they called the auction house owner to make the final decision. The auctioneer was very curious about the bull, so he decided to allow the animal to go up for sale. After that, David took the bull for one last inspection, and once again, all eyes were on his bull. The auction house said they had to keep the bull for a day because the animal was so big that they had to be thorough with their inspection. As they measured the bull's size, weight, and height, and took other information, the auctioneer asked David how he got the bull to grow so big. However, David refused to say. This only made the auctioneer more suspicious. He thought there was something wrong with the animal. But he didn't want to alert David, so he told the farmer that his bull would earn him a large sum of money. That information made David very happy, so he was comfortable leaving the bull at the auction house for all the inspections. David said goodbye, planning to return the next day for the sale. Once everyone left, the auctioneer got to work. He knew what he had to do, but he also knew he had to be careful, or things could get complicated very quickly. First, the auctioneer knew better than to try to solve this mystery on his own. He needed help. While calling the police would be the go-to answer, the auctioneer wanted to be more discreet, at least until he had proof that there was something wrong with the bull. As he thought, fortunately, the auctioneer had a friend, Sam, who was just right for the job. When Sam arrived at the auction house and was introduced to the bull, he didn't even want to go near it at first due to its size. Eventually, he inspected the bull and decided they had to call a veterinarian friend of his who worked with livestock. That's when Julia entered the picture. She was more than willing to help, but she wondered why Sam was calling with such an unusual request. He didn't want to give her any details until she arrived, so she hurried to meet him at the auction house. As a veterinarian, Julia was used to getting calls at all hours of the day and night. However, she was worried about Sam's urgency and had a feeling something was very wrong. When she got to the auction house, the auctioneer showed Julia the documents and photos they had about the bull. At first, Julia thought the photos were a joke, but Sam and the auctioneer convinced her they were real. The size of the bull was unlike anything she had ever seen before. She insisted on seeing the animal up close, and the auctioneer prepared her for what she was about to witness. Sam and the auctioneer led Julia to meet the bull. She looked at it for a long while, unable to process the size of the animal. She slowly approached and felt the bull's muscles and back. There were no tricks or jokes. The animal was real. But how was that possible? Once Julia recovered from the surprise, she started to think about the situation logically. There were only a few reasons why a bull could have gotten so big, so she had to examine it to find clues. The first thing she noticed was that the bull's teeth were in poor condition, and its knees were also not straight because it was struggling to support its weight. Eventually, Julia formulated a theory about how the bull got so big. She informed Sam and the auctioneer of what she had discovered, and the three of them had an idea of what to do. They couldn't be obvious because they didn't want to make David suspicious. If he thought something was wrong, he might disappear. Sam knew they had enough information to arrest David, but first, they had to get him to the auction house without telling him. The auctioneer informed everyone else that the auction had been canceled. As far as David knew, everything was going just as planned. When David woke up in the morning, he was delighted that auction day had arrived. He was hoping to make a lot of money because he was planning on reinvesting in other bulls. He had no idea he was walking right into a trap. After breakfast, David fed the other bulls and rushed through the rest of his chores. He was so anxious to get to the auction that he ended up leaving early. The parking lot was nearly empty, but he didn't think much of it. After all, he was there early. David rushed to see his bull. He wanted to feed him and brush his coat to make him look perfect. After getting the bull ready, David noticed that no one else was at the auction house. The auction was about to start, but where was everyone? He looked for the auctioneer but couldn't find anyone. Then he realized he was locked in, so he started calling for help. A few minutes later, David heard sirens coming closer. He felt relieved, thinking help was on the way. He shouted to let the officers know he was inside, not knowing they were actually there for him. When no one opened the door right away, David began kicking it to show he was trapped. Finally, the door opened, and he was glad to see the officers. But his relief was short-lived because as soon as they saw him, they handcuffed him. David didn't understand what was happening and asked why he was being arrested, but no one answered. The police took him to a cruiser and locked him inside. As he watched, he saw the auctioneer talking to a police officer and a man he didn't know. Then a woman came in with his bull, pointing at different parts of its body while talking to the police, who were taking pictures of the animal. That's when David realized his secret had been discovered. He had been illegally breeding and mixing different types of bulls to make them grow so large. This was a form of animal abuse because the bull was suffering. It wasn't meant to be that big. As a result, David ended up in jail, and his bulls, including the one at the auction house, were taken to a local sanctuary. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you liked this story. Please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.